There are many types of weight loss surgeries that are collectively called bariatric surgery. These procedures are often considered a last chance option for the severely obese. Joining us to talk about this issue is Dr. Marc Rickford, Medical Director of the Bariatric Care Center at Providence Hospital here in Washington, D.C. Thanks for joining us here in the studios. Well, I hear bariatric surgery, I think Chris Christie, and I think Al Roker.
Sure.
And I don't know, did Star Jones ever fess up to it? We'll keep that one moving.
Yes.
But I remember when Chris Christie finally said he got surgery. And I was like, well, I don't see that you've lost any weight. Well, it takes time, right?
Sure. Particularly with the type of surgery that he had.
We'll get into that, the different types of surgeries. But tell me, typically when someone comes to you, what's the type of weight or BMI that you're looking at?
Generally, a person would be a candidate for the surgery if their weight is above a BMI of 40, which in general terms would be for a female about 80 pounds over their ideal body weight, and for a male about 100 pounds over their ideal body weight.
Okay, and so I walk into your office and I say to you, Doctor, I promise you, I have exercised, I have changed my diet, I'm down to eating one meal a day, and I can't get this weight off.
Sure.
Why does that happen?
Well, first of all, eating one meal a day is probably one of the worst things you can do, because what that does is actually slow down your metabolism. I always tell my patients, your body doesn't understand it. It's 2014. All your body knows is that it's starving during those periods. And when your body starves, it conserves the fuel that it has. That same fat, which is a stored energy form, it conserves it. So your metabolism slows down, so you don't burn as much calories. So one of the things that we stress to our patients, because no matter what surgery we do, ultimately to have lifelong success, and that's what we're searching for, not 1 year after surgery,
Right.
2 years after surgery. We want 10, 20, 30 years after surgery. They have to change their habits, which means not skipping meals, eating at least 3 meals a day, and we also generally recommend supplements for all of our patients as well, such as supplemental protein drinks.
Okay, all right. So someone does walk into your office like a Chris Christie, and you guys have many conversations about whether this is a procedure that they should undergo. I'm assuming they have to also undergo a variety of tests. I had a friend who wanted to do this, and bless his heart, he needed to lose weight. He had a heart condition, and the fact that he had the heart condition, they were like, until you're able to lose a little weight and get it under control, we can't do the surgery. He never had it done because he wanted to continue to eat.
Okay.
And unfortunately, he died.
Wow. Yeah, generally, all of our patients do have to go through a very comprehensive workup. All the patients are seen by the cardiologist to make sure their heart is strong enough, as your friend did. Everyone sees the psychologist, which is a very key part of it.
Absolutely.
Because ultimately you have to be ready to make the lifestyle changes necessary to be successful. And it's also important to have other people around you who are going to support you, because it's not something that you can do alone.
Right.
Even for those who are alone, we have support groups for patients that help them with that aspect of it.
Let's talk about the lifestyle changes. Explain those to me.
Well, in American culture, we have a very go, busy society. Most people, a lot of broken homes, single parents. Even if you're not a single parent, it's just you have so much to do. You have to get your kids to school, rush here. So people don't take the time to cook meals and prepare meals. A lot of times you're working multiple jobs because of the economy, you don't get paid as much, but you have to make the ends meet. And so a lot of times what that leads to is you getting home late, stopping at what's cheap.
Right.
A lot of times fast foods are very inexpensive.
Well, and in African-American neighborhoods,
Absolutely.
sometimes that's all that's there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that leads to this kind of vicious cycle where you establish these poor eating habits for even the children.
Yes.
So one of the things that we also find is that not only when the patient who's actually overweight has the surgery is affected, but also the entire family, because they start adopting the new healthier eating habits and being more conscious of the things that they eat and take in. And so it actually has a benefit to the kids as well.
Okay, so let's talk about the types of surgeries. I know there's a band, and tell me.
Yeah, so the 3 major surgeries that we're doing is the laparoscopic Well, I do all the surgeries what we call laparoscopically, which is a minimally invasive technique where we make the small incisions, so it's a faster recovery time.
Is it through my belly button or what?
Well, yeah, a lot of times people will say through the belly button, but they're very, very small incisions, no more than 5 millimeters to 12 millimeter incisions. So all the procedures I do in that fashion, it's just a technique of surgery, but it's still the same surgery. Now, when we do what's called a Roux-en-Y gastric bypass,
Yes.
that's when we make a small gastric pouch about the size of your thumb. It'll hold about 15 to 30 milliliters of fluid. That gives you restriction. In addition, we bypass the remaining portion of your stomach and the first portion of your small intestines. Most of your fat is absorbed in the small intestines. And so because, therefore, when the foods that you eat, you do not absorb 100%. And lastly, there's a behavioral component with the gastric bypass, whereby if they eat the wrong foods, they actually feel physically sick. Right, so they may have diarrhea, they may have crampy abdominal pain. So that kind of helps to teach the person new eating habits.
So how would I know which is better for me?
Sure. I talk to each patient and we go over all the risks and benefits of each surgery. We also go over their complete medical history. I have some patients who have such severe medical problems, they need to lose weight in order to prolong their life. You mentioned Governor Christie, he had what's called an adjustable gastric band, which is just strictly a restricted device, and it only prevents you from eating very heavy solid foods. And it's only certain eating habits will do well with that. So those so-called meat and potato eaters, the heavy meats. A lot of people's eating habit is sweets. Eat sweets and drink sodas and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Now, if you get a band and you just continue doing all those, you won't lose much weight.
Right. Could you do harm to yourself if you get the band and then you are just like eating trash like you used to do?
Well, of course, the harm was one, you'll be unsuccessful. But like all surgeries, there are risks involved that are unique to each procedure. The band is a foreign object. There's potential for it to become infected. You can get what's known as a slip of the band, where the stomach slips above it and it may require additional surgery. So those are some of the complications related. One of the newer procedures, and it's probably the most popular procedure that I currently do, is called a vertical sleeve gastrectomy, which is, well, we've been doing it probably for about 7 or 8 years. And it's a little bit simpler in the mind for patients. What I do is I make your stomach 1/10 the size that it was before. It still goes through the normal digestive process, so there's no malabsorption. But what happens, you eat and you get full very quickly, and you actually stay full for a long time. Lastly, there's a hormonal component to the surgery. By actually removing a portion of the stomach, the hormone which stimulates your appetite is also decreased. And so that patient generally will lose about 55% of their excess weight in about 12 to 18 months.
Wow.
Just slightly less sometimes, and depending, of course, on the patient, to the gastric bypass.
But what do you do with somebody like me who's I'm just a chronic overeater. I just eat a lot. So when someone, you said you can cut it down to 1/10 and they'll feel full. Oh, I'll feel full, but I'll still be cramming food into my mouth.
Well, with that particular surgery, if you eat over stuff, you will vomit.
Oh, so, okay, so it's got a built-in,
so
we'll make your life miserable if you...
correct. And of course, vomiting is a terrible experience, and so people won't do it. So that's one of the big adjustments. In terms of eating habits, if you watch most people how they eat very quickly. Most people will take about 4 bites and they swallow. Now, of course, when we were kids, our parents used to tell us, oh, you need to 32 times to really chew and masticate your food. And so that's what they have to do. They start adopting those eating habits.
Got you.
And one other interesting thing with when you eat so slowly, you start actually tasting your food. And when you start tasting those fried foods, they don't taste so good.
Yeah.
And so it really changes all of their eating habits.
Yeah, that fried catfish I had the other day was good, though. I'm sorry. Dr. Marc Rickford, Medical Director of the Bariatric Center at Providence Hospital, thank you so much for coming in and talking to us. It's a struggle for all of us to keep our weight in control, but when you are a certain level of obesity, there are other options that you need to consider, and you are that man. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving forward with a permanent memorial to honor the life and legacy of anti-apartheid icon Nelson Mandela. Stay with us.